let's talk about this matchup.
So you're admitting you were shady.
I will play the fantasy footballers this week in a preview of what is likely the first round match of the experts division. Now, the fantasy footballers have not technically secured the number 2 seed because they do have to either win or outscore Taylor by 200 points. Both of those are very, either one of those things are it's
okay.
Possible,
so basically, hold on. Let me figure this out. So if I win and the fantasy footballers lose, we have the same record.
Yeah,
but because they have more points, though.
They have more points. So if you outscore them by 200 points, you might have a shot. But what about Robert Woods? I know that they have them on their roster. The Rams receiver last week had 30-some-odd points without a touchdown.
Yeah.
What do you see going forward?
Well, I see a lot of targets for Robert Woods. I mean, that hasn't been the problem the last couple of weeks. The problem has been that he's just not scoring any touchdowns. That was the thing he did well last year. It hasn't happened so far this year. But I do see a situation where they will get him the football quite a bit. This passing game right now pretty much boils down to 3 players. It's Robert Woods, it's Cooper Kupp, and it is the tight end, whoever that may be. This week it looks like it's going to be Tyler Higbee instead of Gerald Everett. So I think the big question is whether or not Robert Woods scores a touchdown, and I always say touchdowns are fickle beasts, so you can never completely predict that.
And I've been going with Cooper Kupp for the entire season. He has been one of my ride or dies. Now, for a couple of weeks, he was struggling, got shut out famously against the Pittsburgh Steelers, even though I was able to survive that because my team is so loaded. But I really needed to get back to what we saw last week against the Arizona Cardinals, where he was the Cooper Kupp that I have known to come and enjoy this fantasy football season. Drafted him in the 4th round? I felt pretty good about that pick.
Nostradamus.
Thank you.
Adam, otherwise known as Nostradamus.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Another matchup, the B team going up against you, Taylor May. Let's take a look. This is the team that you need to score 250 points probably, maybe 300.
I don't know if that's possible, but we can try.
You never know. It starts tonight with Ezekiel Elliott going up against the Chicago Bears. If they ever, Ezekiel Elliott leads the NFL with 621 first half rushing yards, and then he's like the RB12 in the second half because the Cowboys get away from him. But I want to talk about this wide receiver matchup. You were going with who's the guy?
Jarvis Landry.
Jarvis Landry.
I'm going to go with Jarvis Landry.
You feel comfortable with that?
I do, and it's funny because I obviously drafted him later than I drafted Nick Chubb this year. But Jarvis Landry has probably been one of the most productive people on that Browns offense, and I realize that that's not saying tons, but he's got a very favorable matchup this week going up against the Cincinnati Bengals, where they are allowing the most yards to receivers since week 8. And Jarvis Landry has been one of Baker's just go-to targets, and so I see him getting in the end zone a lot this week.
Devontae Adams was the first-round pick of the fantasy football, of Graham Barfield. And now that he's back from his injury, it seems like he is starting to play how Graham wanted him to play when you make him your first-round pick. And they've had a great matchup this week. Going up against Washington, Aaron Rodgers is now starting to fire on all cylinders. And if there is a place where you can exploit the Washington defense, it is going to be in the secondary. So I expect Aaron Rodgers to have a good game as well as Devontae Adams. Now another one of our expert leagues, Hollywood Inc. MG. Let's take a look at this matchup right here. Hollywood Inc. will be starting Dak Prescott tonight against the Dallas Cowboys. James White is back in the lineup after sitting on the bench with 30 points. Might have cost Hollywood Inc. a shot at the playoffs. Well, the last couple of weeks have not been kind, but one wide receiver. I think Marvin Jones has been playing well. Cortland Sutton has been amazing, even with the change at quarterback. But let's talk about
2 changes at quarterback.
Yeah,
he's
been
surviving,
good.
thriving.
But the one receiver I'm interested in.
Yes.
Golden Tate.
So Golden Tate has been a continual kind of wide receiver. He's not been bad. He's not been amazing. But the last 6 games, he's averaged almost 16 points a game and gotten at least 11 points. So I think he's an easy start. Now, with Daniel Jones being out with an ankle injury and Eli Manning most likely starting for the Giants, I'm hopeful that those two can find a connection and he could have some end zone targets. But now that we're heading into the fantasy playoffs, this is really when the matchups matter. And the Philadelphia Eagles, you would think they were a good defense last year. This year, not so much. And they're actually the worst against wide receivers. So I think if you're looking at an easy start this week, Golden Tate is the guy.
And you're going with Christian Kirk again, Marcus.
I am. It's been a roller coaster with him. Middle of the season, he was sort of Captain Kirk, and he was definitely in command. Last week he was just a red shirt, which if you know anything about Star Trek, it's not a good thing. Those guys usually don't come back. But I think this has the potential to end up kind of being a track meet between the Cardinals and the Steelers. I know that, Rank, you and I both like Duck Hodges this week.
Yeah.
I love that.
I do. I think he's going to be really good this week, and so I think that means Kyler Murray is going to have to answer and throw the football, and generally when he does that, Christian Kirk's one of his preferred targets.
And let's move over to the celebrity division. FaZe Clan is taking on the Oracle, and this will be the playoff matchup in the celebrity division. So perhaps, there's going to be a little bit of gamesmanship here and there, but both these teams are very good. Yeah. I'm interested to see what the FaZe Clan does. I mean, obviously you start Christian McCaffrey, but I'm interested to see how the Panthers are going to respond to the firing of Ron Rivera. But Taylor, let's talk about Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, so he's kind of been somebody that you expected to be a top 4, at least top 4
Absolutely.
running back this season.
First pick in the
and
draft.
since his injury, he really just hasn't had as many explosive games. He's ranked 13th among running backs, and Kimmy was just talking about the Philadelphia Eagles defense, which is very bad against receivers, except when it comes to the running game, they actually give up the 4th fewest points in the NFL. So while Saquon Barkley is somebody that you are always going to start, and you can expect him to have a very good game, I don't think it's going to be as favorable of a matchup as, say, a Derrick Henry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, speaking of Derrick Henry, I mean, is it weird to say that you would almost rather have Derrick Henry at this point of the season, Marcus?
No.
I mean, no, it's not a weird thing at all. It would have been weird to say that in, August or September, yes. But now, no, not really. And look, I know everybody coming into this week, myself included, has been big on Ryan Tannehill and what he can do at the fantasy quarterback spot. But let's keep in mind that even for all the success Tannehill has had, they're still not throwing the ball a ton. I mean, they're trying to keep him around 20 to 25 throws a game, which means there's still a lot of opportunity for Derrick Henry to get the ball, and I expect he's going to get it plenty this week.
Another big celebrity matchup, Desi Banks will be taking on Team AEW. Let's take a look at that. By the way, if I can just throw out a little editorial note.
Please.
Cody's promos on Wednesday Dynamite are hot fire, and if you're not watching it, you are missing out. He is one of the best on the mic and also one of the best workers in professional wrestling. I know that you guys don't care about that. I just wanted to get that out there. I wanted it on the record. But let's talk about the quarterbacks. And Kimmy,
yes,
Drew Brees going up against San Francisco. How are you feeling about that one?
So I am notoriously the fantasy player that plays with my heart and not my head, which is probably why I will not make the fantasy playoffs this year, and that is completely on me. But if you look at this matchup on paper on Drew Brees going against the San Francisco 49ers, I would urge Desi Banks and all fantasy owners to maybe think about starting someone else if you have some other streaming options. Now, the last time Drew Brees played the 49ers, he had almost 25 fantasy points, but that was when they did not have Nick Bosa.
Right.
And if you see him on defense, they're really going to challenge New Orleans offensive line and not give Drew Brees as much time in the pocket. So I think there's going to be limited throws to guys like Jared Cook and Michael Thomas. So if you have Drew Brees, I would think about putting him on the bench and starting someone with a better matchup like Dak Prescott tonight.
Taylor, how are you feeling about Russell Wilson going for Team AEW?
Speaking of, Kimmy, you were just saying head and heart. This is kind of one of those other situations where Russell Wilson and the Rams play each other very hard. Obviously, that's a division rival. And while Russell Wilson does rank second among quarterbacks this year with just over 22 fantasy points a game, he really only averages just over 17 points against the Rams, which isn't as great. The Rams have gotten to Russell Wilson and sacked him more than any other team in his career. And obviously that is a little bit because they play each other so frequently, but it's also because these two teams play each other very hard. I don't think that it's going to look or be as favorable as of a matchup as what on paper Russell Wilson would be going up against a Rams defense that isn't that strong. In the last 4 to 5 weeks, though, they've been putting it on and they haven't allowed as many fantasy points to quarterbacks.
We got a little bit of breaking news as well. You did it. You convinced them not to play Drew Brees.
Desi listened.
Desi is going to be starting
Shout out
Aaron
to you.
Rodgers, even though that guy peaked in high school. But whatever. That's good. Let's take a look at our final celebrity matchup.
Not hostile.
And it's Charles Melton against Kane Brown. The quarterback situation is one we're looking at. Although Kane's going with Matt Breida, who is expected to play. Phillip Lindsay could be one of the top running backs this week. A.J. Brown's been coming along. Is Taylor Gabriel active tonight? Do we need to?
I do not know.
Do we need to get a last-minute switch? Well, let's talk about the quarterback position. And Kirk Cousins is somebody who I've made fun for quite some time. And
I would never make fun of
I like to
anyone.
poke fun at Kirk Cousins, but you know what?
You would never.
He's been playing really well. He's been averaging over 17 fantasy points per game over the last 4. He's been consistent, even though they've been running the ball. And I think that Mike Zimmer definitely wanted to run the ball a lot, which is why we didn't see a lot out of Kirk Cousins earlier in the season. He has still been one of the most efficient guys. He's not going to be the best fantasy quarterback out there, but he's also not going to kill you. But Kimmy,
Yes.
your guy, Patrick Mahomes, Taylor talked about it in the cold open. Are you excited about playing him in New England?
I am very excited about playing him in New England. As Taylor said, he has only gone up against Tom Brady twice, and he has not been successful. But I really do think that Patrick Mahomes has it in him to go against the Patriots and have an effective game. I would not bench him if I had him on my roster. He's put up 25 fantasy points against the Patriots, including the playoffs. Mind you, that was in Arrowhead. That was at home. It's a hostile environment. Playing in New England is a whole different ball game, but I really do have faith in Patrick Mahomes. I don't want to curse myself,
No,
but
I do too.
You should. The young quarterbacks who will probably face Tom Brady in the playoffs, we're talking to Sean Watson, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, they've all had success with him.